Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Today with us on the show is Lisa Grunden, the founder of Your Limitless Potential, a leading personal development seminar company and the host of personal development on the popular Profitability Revolution Internet TV station, and has appeared on local TV stations throughout the United States and even in Qatar. Lisa is an inspirational and motivational speaker who combines teaching and entertaining in her audience participation speeches. If you want an event that is both rewarding to you and your associates, then Lisa's there to help. Her speeches leave audiences energized, inspired, confident, and engaged to make a positive change in their own life. Her empowering message of loving and living your best life inspires the masses to step up and play full out in their personal and professional lives. She comes from a strong corporate background and says she's a little bit corporate and a little bit woo-woo and everything in between. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks for having me here today.
So, Lisa, tell us about how coaching chose you as a career path.
You know, Ken, many years ago, I was blessed to finish college, and I began my career as a computer programmer. And at that point, I felt that I had it all. I had a great job. We made pretty good money. That was pre-Y2K. We were making pretty good money, and the job was interesting, fun, inspiring. And I noticed a lot of people still weren't happy with their lives. I mean, we had the job, we had the money, we had the great career, and, you know, so I thought that the great life would follow with all of those things. And it did with mine because I was so excited to go from working in restaurants and factories to this professional career. And all these other people, it's like, there's more to life. There's more to life. And it's fun. And it set me on a quest that was my own personal development quest on what is it that gives a person joy? What is it that makes a person happy? What is it that creates abundance? And somehow or other, boom, I fell into coaching by going through a lot of different woo-woo activities like Reiki and emotional freedom technique known as EFT and NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, even hypnosis, and all of those things to find what's the perfect combination of getting people in touch with their why, their bliss, their wow, their yes, I'm living my best life now.
Tell us some of the stories about some of the folks you've been able to help.
You know, I have been blessed to have a lot of people come across my path into my office, and I work with many over Skype. And there are a lot of women that have come to me because of their body image, not liking their body image. And this was an interesting thing that I learned with this, Ken, is it just wasn't women that needed to drop 100 pounds or 50 pounds or maybe even 10 pounds. But I also had a lot of women that were either at or below their ideal weight who also had a very, very distorted image of themselves. And at that point, I realized that it has absolutely nothing to do with what's going on the outside. It has everything to do with what's going on the inside. And so I had created a program called Finally Thin Forever, which helped a lot of those women on all sides of the scale, all sides of the spectrum, learn to embrace themselves. Because when you're thin in your head first, everything else follows. And then I had a lot of other people who crossed my door who had a lot of leftover issues from childhood, as many of us do. And what a lot of people that were coming to me had experienced severe sexual trauma and abuse by family members, friends, mentors, teachers, things like that. There were a lot of people that were attracted to me, and I was able to help them through that. I still remember the very first time that this happened, Ken, is I was working with a client, and we had about 10 minutes left in her session, and I had a packed day that day, so it wasn't like I had a lot of extra time to be able to work with this when she all of a sudden had a vivid memory of her mother trying to choke her and throw her down the stairs. And then right after that was also the abuse that she'd suffered at the hands of her father. And so not knowing at that point really what to do, because I'd never helped a client through this before, I stuck with the techniques, the training, my instinct, my gut on what to do next. And then certainly in 10 minutes, you can't solve this sort of issue, but you can certainly neutralize it and give the client a lot of peace. And that's exactly what we did. And I myself did not fully trust that process, because I thought, wow, there's no way in just a few minutes that she could be okay until the next time we work on this. So I called her that night. Everything is cool. Everything is great. We had appointments scheduled the next week. And I called her a couple of days later just to touch base and say, hey, I've just been thinking about you. How you doing? That sort of thing. And I was amazed to find out that she was still at relative peace with this issue. And I learned just how powerful not only these techniques are, but when the facilitator is not emotionally tied to what's happening and is there to support her client, completely there to support her client, everything opens in a whole new healing way. I'm not saying I've done everything perfectly the entire time, but being open and being there and being the listener and the advocate and the mentor, the leader through that healing process, because I still maintain to this day that my clients show me what they need, and together we're able to navigate that path. So then I've also taken it from one-on-one coaching sessions to working with groups as well.
It's an amazing, powerful story of transformation, and you were able to help her in just a very short period of time with one session, right?
With one session, yes, and then we delved in. I think if I'm remembering correctly, we had a total of 5 that went on over the course of 5 weeks, where we dealt with her mother. I don't mean to sound blasé about this, but her mom trying to end her life and her father sexually abusing her, to get her to a place of peace. Because what I have discovered in my own life and what every one of my clients has gone through is when they breach, they deal with the anger, they deal with the disbelief, they deal with all of those grief issues. And then they reach the point of forgiveness, and they realize that the forgiveness is not for the other person. The forgiveness is for themselves, to be able to cut the ties with the past. And every client that I have followed up with, whether it be a month, a year later, because I've been doing this for more than 8 years now, that they've been able to maintain that peace, that forgiveness, and even take it a deeper and deeper layer. Because what's really amazing is many of my clients have been able to reconnect with their parents despite everything that happened in the past, because they let it go. And not just let it go from the let it go, let it go, let it go, from the real place of letting it go.
What are some of the techniques that you use to help somebody with those sort of deep-set issues overcome them?
Well, I'm the eternal optimist, so I believe that there is a solution to everything. And not only do I believe it, I know there is a solution to everything. And for clients that have just one visit or perhaps a couple, and they really want to work on this issue, I like to use emotional freedom technique, which is EFT, is known as the tapping. I find that to be incredibly helpful. And not only that, but it gives the client something to do through the session. So they're not just concentrating on their words or anything else. They're constantly tapping. They're constantly tapping. And what I have found to be true always with tapping is that the body feels more relaxed. The person feels more relaxed. They don't feel so overwhelmed. The emotions come up because tears come up, shouting comes up, swear words come up, laughter comes up, everything comes up. And when they keep tapping and I hold the course and hold the space for them through the session, amazing things happen. And then I also like to use hypnosis, where we talk directly to the subconscious mind so that the new habits, the new beliefs that the client wants for herself, for himself, are instilled as they sleep or at any point during the day when they just want to take a few minutes out and just listen. Those are some of the big time techniques. And the biggest thing that I understand is always holding the light for where the client wants to go. It's not, how do I say this? It's not me telling them which way to go. It's them coming up with a path. We know the direction that they want to take. And then it's like we kind of navigate. It's not that we don't have a plan or anything like that, but I have found that there's a lot more success when I follow the route that the client takes instead of taking them down a predetermined route that I have laid out. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm curious, what do you think the main thing is that holds people back from getting over those kinds of issues?
Well, there is that silly line that better the devil you know. I'm not quite sure where that comes from, but better the pain you know, because you're comfortable with your pain, you know your pain, and we have these things around us called comfort zones. And anybody who doubts that they have a comfort zone, they think they're wide open, just go and try something you've never done before and see how easy it is to do that. And so, we feel comfortable with the pain that we know. And believe it or not, Marianne Williamson wrote that fabulous poem, Our Deepest Fear. And I have found over and over and over again that her words are true, that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is powerful beyond measure. Who am I to be brilliant, talented, gorgeous, unique? And I know I paraphrased her words there, but it's really easy to fit in with everyone else and have the same pain and the same conversations and all that kind of stuff. And it's really scary to stand out and be out there, because what happens is a lot of your friends start stripping away. And then a lot of your friends are like, well, yeah, you're doing that and you think you're so great and everything else. And that's not what it is at all, but that's the feedback that many people get.
So you said something there that triggered something in me. I heard that fear plays a big part in holding people back there. And you're able to help people get past that fear. Can you talk a little bit about how you're able to do that?
You know what? Everybody has a feeling when they hear the word fear. And even some really great people have given fear. They have given it words like fear, false evidence, appearing real, and those kinds of things. And that's great. That's great. For me, I created my own acronym with fear. And F, feel your feelings. And the E is expect something different. And the A is appreciate yourself. And the R is release and leap. And if I could quickly go through those, the feel your feelings. Many people, many people feel the first hiccup. And that's it. That's enough. They don't want to go any deeper because it's a scary, scary place to be. It's kind of like if you have a paper that you got to write. I don't know about you, but pretty much every paper I ever wrote, all the way from grade school to college, was written the night before. Granted, we had some deadlines we had to meet, but most of them were written the night before because I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And it was never as tough as I thought it would be when I went through the power night of writing. Just imagine if I'd actually given it some time. But it's feeling those feelings instead of running from them, instead of fleeing. And the E is expect something different, because a lot of us, it's that, okay, there's that feeling. I know what happens when I get this frog in my throat or this pit in my stomach, and I know exactly what happens, and I don't want it to happen. And expect something different this time. And you train yourself. I'm not saying you're going to do it perfect the first time, the second, the third, the 100th time. Even the 1000th time. Who cares about perfection? It's doing it. However badly, doing it is always different, and expecting something different sets you up for success.
I've heard the phrase, feel the fear and do it anyway, and I think that's sort of what you're talking about. Expect that you're going to feel uncomfortable feelings and push through, and you'll see success.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. These are just my words. That's all. It's all the same stuff. Exactly.
So we've got feeling your feelings, which is the F, and then E is expect something different. What's the A?
The A is appreciate yourself. And I really want to talk about that because it goes right in line with Marianne Williamson's poem, Who Am I to be brilliant, to be gorgeous, to be talented. It's appreciating yourself, because we all have a long laundry list that we have been given from the time we were 2 or younger to today, where people are just in their way of trying to help us. They've been busy pointing out everything we've done wrong and all of our faults and all that kind of stuff. And they really didn't intend, your parents didn't, your teachers didn't, your mentors, your friends didn't intend to knock you down, but that's sort of what happened. And so learning to appreciate myself. Yes, I'm doing it badly, and I'm appreciating myself anyway. Yes, I'm not perfect, and I'm learning to appreciate myself anyway. And yes, you know what? I may not look like the Barbie doll, but you know what? I'm doing this anyway. And I'm doing this anyway. That appreciation for yourself. It's learning to love yourself, appreciating yourself. I think it's a big, huge piece especially in going through your comfort zones and going through fear.
I know a lot of times fear holds people back, and in some cases it can even push people forward. Living in fear isn't a way to live, but in a lot of ways it can be a great motivator. A lot of my business success came directly from being afraid of failure. That fear pushed me forward, pushed me through areas where I wasn't comfortable to become successful because I had that fear. So fear isn't always bad, right? Sometimes fear is good to have.
Fear isn't always bad. Fear isn't good. Fear isn't bad. Fear is simply fear. That's it. Imagine what would happen if we just didn't judge. It's like, because as you go back and you look at those things that you pushed through, and as I go back and I look at those things that I pushed through, is that sometimes when like the best thing is about to happen in your life, there's those butterflies and that it almost feels like fear too. There's really no difference in that anticipation of something that's really great and that worry about, I don't know what's going to happen and I'm not sure how I feel about that. If we really sit and look at it and feel it, the feelings are almost the same.
So feeling the feelings, expecting something different, appreciating yourself, and we have the R. What's the R?
It's release and leap. Release and leap. It's like, okay, there's the fear. Let it go. Open your hands, whatever it is. Clap them. Do some sort of something. I like to release my fears. I like to jump up, and you just leap. It's kind of like in that Indiana Jones movie where it's the leap of faith when he jumped from the lion's head, and boom, all of a sudden there was a bridge there. Mm-hmm. So I'm also borrowing from somebody else, is that when you leap, knowing that one or two things is going to happen, is you're going to learn to fly or something's there to catch you. And it always happens, even when you hit the ground, even when you hit a wall. It's never as bad as you thought. There's something there to catch you. And then you get up and you shake yourself off and you're like, wow.
For me, it was a fear of failure that spurred me along. Do you find that some people are actually afraid of success?
You know what? I see people afraid of failure and success, and for me, it looks the same from both standpoints. And I honestly think that it's more of a fear of success than a fear of failure, and that doesn't really matter. It's the same process, and it's appreciating yourself, appreciating your talents, and then utilizing them, because that's one of the things that a lot of us forget to do, is really utilizing the skills that we have. We're so busy judging what we don't know instead of doing what we do know. When I was a newbie computer programmer, I was brand new. I was just a couple months on the job, and granted, I wasn't 20, I was 30, but still, I had these programmers who had been programming for 18 years, 10, 15, 18 years. And they were coming to me for guidance and advice. And at first in my head, I'm kind of like, well, if you knew that I'd only been on the job since May, you probably wouldn't be coming to me. But then it was also like, okay, well, just let go of that and let's see what we can do to help them. And you know what? It worked because, I made tons of mistakes. Oh, don't get me wrong. I was so far from perfect. And there were people that lined up that couldn't wait to tell me what I had done wrong. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll try and fix that. I'll not try and fix it. I'll fix that next time. And, there is that fear, and we think it's failure, and we think it's success, and really all it is the comfort zone. And yes, we tell ourselves that, I want to do this because I want to shine, or I want to do this because I don't want to fall. You know what? It's all the same stuff. And the fear of failure that you're talking about, all it was a comfort zone that you were breaking through to get through the next level, because I bet you had a lot of things that you had on your mind, like perhaps your family, perhaps the money that you needed in your account, things like that were propelling you forward. And with that fear of failure, what I bet you really had was the knowledge that somehow I'm going to make this work. And that's it's the feeling. It's the expecting something different, appreciating yourself at some point because you were appreciating that you could do something that you hadn't done before.
So for folks that are, in a relationship, but they're afraid to leave it, if it's an abusive relationship, fear can hold them back. This would work for them too, releasing that fear and just leaping forward and taking a step towards having a better life. You've helped lots of people with this type of situation, but how did you learn all this? Is this from personal experience or formal education, or Where did you learn to really help people get past and push through fear?
So this is not to toot my own horn, humble brag, so to speak, but the biggest thing that we all need to do is we all need to appreciate gifts that we have and to look for the gifts that we have, because all of us are blessed with unique talents. And when I took a step back and I looked and I realized that pretty much every job that I ever had, from working at fast food to working in a factory to operating a daycare center to working at a humane society and every other job all the way through corporate, I realized that I always found my way. I always kept climbing the ladder. It just seemed to be a talent that I had, whether it was because I was always open to learning new things or wanting to learn new things or just being able to notice and observe. I've always been a solution-minded person. And so just imagine in the corporate world when everybody is screaming problem, 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 and you say, okay, yeah, I hear this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem, so let's look for a solution. Because I was never running around like Chicken Little with a head cut off. It's like, although I did sometimes in my personal life, but for the most part, it's like, okay, there's always a solution here. And so then when other people were coming to me and trusting me, because I had no judgment, trusting me with some of the most intimate details of their life. Now, keep in mind, it's not my stuff that they're experiencing, but I also went through my own path that we can talk about. And it's being able to hold the vision for them that they want for themselves. And I'm like the candle standing there holding the vision that they want. And okay, if this is who you really are, because let me tell you that anything that you want to have, you can have when you get out of your own way. And anything that you can dream you have, you can, because Henry Ford, I think, said it best, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So it's all a matter of which one that you want to choose. So when you sit there and you hold that vision for the person, and then you're able to see the things that don't belong, the fears that don't belong, the belief systems that don't belong. What do you have to let go of in order to make this happen? And knowing that it can happen because, I have been broken penniless. We'll talk about my story later with $27 in my bank account to traveling the world and everything in between.
Tell us a story about how you had to push through fear in some specific instance in your life and what that meant.
Okay. Many years ago, actually just about 6 years ago, I had hit the lowest point in my life. 15 months before, I had quit my corporate job, sold off what I didn't need, sold my home, packed my Mini Cooper and a trailer and my dog, and we set out to Colorado with nothing but sparkles in my eyes, stars in my eyes, a dream, and some cash. And I was going to make it happen. So almost 15 months to the day later, I sat in my apartment. It was the first of the month, and I had $27 in my bank account. I had my dog. I had $27. I had no way to pay the rent. I had failed so miserably at starting my own business. Just tanked it miserably. I worked at it. I had lots of clients, and somehow it just all fell apart. And I was at the lowest point in my life. And I had many low points before, but this was the lowest point in my life. And I didn't know what to do. I talked to a friend of mine back in Wisconsin. I was in Colorado because I just took off to a new place where I knew nobody. I didn't set myself up with a support structure of any kind. Mm-hmm. And I just knew I could do it. And I listened to a lot of people who wanted me to run my business their way. And really pay attention to that, because that's important when it comes to coaching, when it comes to living your life, is that no matter how great the advice is, a lot of it has to be in congruence with you, with your why, with your values. No matter how good their values are, or what their values are, it has to be in congruence with you. And so I just crying tears into the coat of my dog. It was me and my dog. And I had until the 3rd before I had to get out for sure, because there were always 3 days. I mean, I had to be out by the 1st, but I had until the 3rd because they always gave you that leeway on getting your check-in. So I didn't know what to do. So I sold off as much as I could of my stuff. I managed to get $512. And I thought that was more than enough to head back to Wisconsin, I found a place to live, and it was enough cash to keep me going for about a month and a half. And I would get any kind of job or anything like that, things I hadn't been willing to do when I was running my own business. I hadn't been willing to go back to a job. I wanted to run a business. And I wanted to be in a coaching business. I wanted to be making a difference in the lives of people. And on my worst day, I had one client left, and I was coaching her through an interview. Now, this was the dichotomy of the situation, is that I knew the money that she needed to ask for that job was $250,000. And I knew somehow that something really weird was going to happen in that interview, and I told her, don't worry about it. And I really did a lot of work coaching her on the $250,000 because I knew she was worth it. I had $27 in my account. Mm-hmm. I talked her through that and got her through that, and she went through the interview and all that, and she called me back afterwards. She's like, Lisa, guess what happened? And she said, Lisa, they left in the middle of the interview. They looked at each other, they said, we'll be back, and they just walked out. I'm like, wow, holy smokes. But she was cool with it. She just sat there. She's kind of like, this is exactly what Lisa said would happen. But anyway, they came back in and they said to her, we're sorry, the job that you're interviewing for, you're overqualified for. But we have this job instead that you'd be perfect for. And they let her write her ticket on how much money she was worth. And she wound up getting that $250,000. And that night, 5 o'clock, 10 to 5, I think, later on that night, I got a phone call from somebody who needed a life coach in her business. And so at the point I surrendered, the worst moment, gave up, got angry, gave up everything, was ready to go, and just made peace with it, everything fell into place. 1 week later, I met the man, my soulmate, 1 week later. The guy I had been searching for probably 17 years. I met him, boom. At that point, when I gave up on, not that I gave up, that's the wrong term, that I surrendered everything. They said, okay, I'm no longer going to try to control everything that happens. I'm just going to surrender. I'm going to be open. I'm going to take action. I'm going to do my part, but I'm just going to ask for a little help here instead of trying to do it all myself. And the entire world opened up. The entire world opened up.
It seems that that's the R in the fear. Release and leap.
Exactly. Release and leap. I went from having one stamp in my passport, that was for Canada, to I'm not even sure how many stamps I have. I know I have, I think, one page left in my passport that hasn't been stamped. So hopefully I'll need additional pages before it's time to renew my passport in 2019.
That's great. So you've been to how many different countries?
More than 30. I was going to sit down and count them all out, but I didn't take the time to do that. I think it's probably more than 60, but I'll take a look at that and write them all out, just as a point of remembering.
That's great. So you recently jumped off the Stratosphere Hotel in Vegas. Tell us a little bit about that.
You know, I was in Vegas with a dynamic speaker training, and we were working on our core presentations. And one of the guys in the group is only 21 years old, and he goes, I think we should all jump off the Stratosphere. Who wants to do it? Well, what am I going to say? No. I'm all about releasing fears. And we got up there, and we were all suited up and all that kind of stuff, and I had decided beforehand that I was going to leave any leftover fear on the platform. Notice that fear it's never something we can completely let go of, but it's something that we continue to move through. So I was going to leave any lingering fear over some current issues on the platform, and I was leaping into being fully alive, because that's what I realized is living and loving your best life now is being alive is what that is, that feeling of being alive. And sometimes your breath is taken away, and sometimes you just want to hold a moment forever when you're fully alive. And so there we were on top, and I'm all excited, and I'm going first because I'm a little bit nervous. Okay, I'm a lot nervous. I'm a little bit nervous, and I got a big smile on my face, and I am ready to go. And I march out on that platform, and I march out there, and all of a sudden I'm at the edge of the platform, and I look down, and I'm like, you know, there was that, and I cut loose with my favorite word, which is F word, and added a few other words to the F word to make them really stand out. And then I realized thanks to the words of a very kind person who said to me, and you know who that is because it's you, who said to me that, that's what it's like when you're moving through your stuff, is it feels just like that word that you said. And then I told him, I said, don't push me. He's like, oh, I won't. That's just the thing. Because usually I tell the guy to push me just in case I don't go. So he did the countdown where you jump off, because jumping off the stratosphere is 855 feet. It's 108 stories. And it's dark, so you can see all the lights in Vegas, but you're aware that there's this big void. And so he does the countdown, and I was just sure that I stood there for 10 more minutes after he did that countdown. And I was really happy to see that it only, I think, probably a second and a half, and I leaped. So the first leap was, ah, and then the turned to, ah, and then Vegas, baby, Vegas. And here I am flying through the air. I was just flying through the air. And, I said to myself before I jumped that I am leaving any fear that's lingering right now on this platform, and I am leaping into being fully alive. And I'm flying through the air. It feels like you're flying. You're connected. You're not free falling or anything, but it just feels like you're flying. And I was so in the moment that I completely forgot that the jump would end at some point. And so instead of ending gracefully on my feet like everyone else did, I did a belly flop on the ground. I just was so in the moment, I forgot. And then, boom, I hopped up, and I wasn't humiliated. I'm like, wow, I completely forgot to land. I was having so much fun. It was so exhilarating. I completely forgot to laugh. And everybody that was there was cheering and clapping for me anyway, because they're like, yeah, she just completely forgot to land. She was busy. And my friend Jace was like, yeah, you were looking at us, and you were smiling and laughing and waving at us, and boom, belly flop on the ground. And that's so cool about leaping into your fear is, wow, you don't have to do it perfectly. I didn't have to land on my feet like everyone else, because you know what? There is no such thing as perfection. It's doing it. And I didn't get hurt when I landed on my belly. I was supported by the cables that were hooked to me, by the guide that was there helping me on the ground. And 5 years ago, I would have been humiliated, and all I would have been able to have thought about was crashing and nothing else. And instead, I watched that video because I'm like, yeah, my hair is flopping in the breeze. It looks all this. It looks all that. I'm screaming wonderful things, and I'm just, sharing with my lungs that this is the greatest moment ever, to always leap into being alive.
That's great. You went from being scared with a holy F moment at the top to coming down to the bottom and feeling completely liberated and free. So tell us about what things are like for you now.
After the worst moment in my life, and we talked about that and how a week later I met the guy, I have been to some amazing places that I never, ever would have imagined. That the first stamp I got in my passport after the Canada stamp that had been there for a few years was in Dubai, which is in the United Arab Emirates. I met my guy. He had been going actually to Afghanistan. He got a great job offer. And so we had a 2-week date every 3 months. And he left a month after we met. And so the first stamp was in Dubai. And they have this building there, perhaps you've heard of, was the tallest building in the world. I can't remember the stories right now. But we went there just like we went to the stratosphere. But you don't bungee jump off the Burj Khalifa. But you go up to the observation deck. And you get to look around and you get to see and you get an amazing view of the city. And so then it got to be talking that, my guy was really he had a great job in Afghanistan. Yes, in a war zone. Yes, in the Helmand province, yada, yada, yada. And I'm not making light of it. I'm just saying that, yes, these are the facts. This is where he was. And I wasn't seeing the bad of being in a war zone. I was seeing this is what I'm willing to do. And this is the great opportunity that I have to make a leap in my life that I wanted to make, that he wanted to make. And so then it got to be, well, maybe I should start life coaching here in Dubai, because we have this area called the free zone. And so we looked into doing that, and like 6 months after my first trip to Dubai, boom, I'm back there again, and we're looking into doing this. And I go to interview at this company. It's not a life coaching company, but it's a business development company. And I thought, okay, I'll go to the interview. I'll check it out. I'll see what's going on over here. And you wouldn't believe what happened, because I still can't believe what happened, is that all of a sudden I was given a job, and they offered me a job. And the job that they offered to me was not in Dubai. The job that they offered to me was in Afghanistan, in the Helmand province, in Camp Leatherneck, Camp Bastion, the same place where my guy was, and working in a Turkish camp company called Metog, doing business development for this company, Superjet, to get their business going in Afghanistan. I had 2 days. And at first I'm like, wow, I didn't expect this. I'm living in Dubai, right? And then it's like, how exciting is this? Because my guy is there, and wow, what can happen here? And I get to go to Kandahar, all these places that I've heard about on the news, because I was too busy, the solution, the excitement, I get to be with my guy, I get to do this, to think about where we were. The only thing that I thought of, because remember, I'm in Dubai at this point, I only have a suitcase. I've already gotten rid of everything I didn't need to have, and my dog is being very well taken care of by a dear friend of mine until I get back, or until she can be sent to me. And so all I had to do was pack my suitcase, and you're going to laugh, is get my hair done. Because in Afghanistan, I'm a woman. What am I supposed to be thinking about? Everything else is done. I got to get my hair done. Who knows when I'm going to see a beautician again? And so that's what I did. And I can't tell you all the places that we've traveled, the adventures my guy and I have been on. Our kids are grown. The countries that we've lived in, because we went to Afghanistan, and then we went back to United Arab Emirates. We were going to go to Abu Dhabi, but then the job wound up in Doha, Qatar, and we were there for a long time, and we got to travel extensively, and we got to meet people from all different, it was United Nations. In Afghanistan, it was United Nations. And by what I mean by that is I met people from all different countries, chatted with people that I might never have had an opportunity to meet. And so, yes, like I said, my passport is nearly full. I've been blessed to go to so many things, to see cathedrals in so many different countries in the world, meet and talk with people on the street. And it's life-changing. Been to Mexico City, been to the pyramids. It's, so many things. Met friends in Qatar who were Egyptian and said, hey, we'll take you around. Imagine that, having a personal guided tour by someone who grew up there and lived there for 30 years before they moved to Qatar. The blessings in life, they just keep coming with the people I've met. In Qatar, I got 3 dogs, 3 Salukis. And they're still with me today. They got on a plane with me, and they went from Qatar to Chicago with me, and now they're here now. And life just keeps, I've met so many great people. I've met you. I've met other speakers. I've met people that are just up to amazing things in their life. And I have been so gifted with people sharing what they consider to be their deepest, darkest, most painful, humiliated moments. And with me, they have honored me with that. And we get them to the place where not only are they able to make peace with it, they're able to let it go and stop defining themselves that way. Because to this date, most of my clients have still been sexual abuse victims, survivors, whatever you want to call them, in the past. Because of what's done in this country is, yes, there's so many programs to help them, but just like an alcoholic forever calls himself an alcoholic, the sexual abuse survivor has always been listed with that label. And what I tell them is that's a label somebody else gave to you. You don't have to keep it. You've moved past it. What label do you want for yourself now? And I've had women that, entrepreneur, that home owner. I got off of welfare. My kids are no longer welfare recipients. I've started my own business. I've moved up the ladder. I went to college. I found a relationship that was no longer the same way that it was before. Instead of it being abusive, instead of it being hurtful, instead of hating to go home, I love to go home. And I can't tell you the kind of high that not only do they have, but I have, because I get to witness that time and time again, that people honor me with their darkest moment and they let it go. They let it go, and they do the feeling, they do the expecting something different. It's not always easy, and learning to appreciate yourself is almost the hardest.
And I think a lot of that has to do with letting go of that fear. I mean, everything you just talked about was amazing, and it happened because you were able to push through the fear. Why do you think it took so long to find the relationship that you'd always been looking for and the amazing life you'd always been looking for? Do you think it was fear, and getting past it was what led to the success?
It was fear, getting past it and leading to the success. And the other part is I know that, people will just be shocked. But, I have a bit of a type A personality, and I like to control things. And I like to control things the way I want them. And I had gone to a friend of mine and I, when we were at the job that when we were in computer programming, we wanted to go to this psychic, and we're asking this psychic for advice. And the psychic said to me, that your partner is out there, which is what I asked her about because, for 17 years, it was the only thing I could think about, really. Even though I had so many other successes in life, it was the only thing I could think about. I didn't release and let go. I didn't even expect something different because I didn't even expect the guy to be different from other guys that I had known that, while weren't like physically abusive, certainly I had set myself up for people to be able to dump all over me at that point in time, which is probably why coaching drew me. It's probably why it drew me, because I was the person that had been dumped on and dumped on herself until one day I just said, life doesn't have to be this way. And I don't think life is this way. And it took it for me to see it in my children before I could see it for myself. And so I spent 12 years controlling and looking and trying to maintain and not letting go. So absolutely it was fear. Because the day I let go, oh my God. If you hear everyone talk about it, they say that in that moment of fear, it's fight, flight, or freeze. And when that was, I got to tell you a little story that I don't have all the, I got to tell you a little story about this. That yes, many people fight, flight, or freeze. And when that study was done, most of the people in the professional life, most people in the corporate world were men. There are very few women when the study was done. So fight, flight, or freeze. And what they found is that there's another one, that women have this tendency of kind of going with their tribe to almost problem solve. It's like, okay, it's like if you've ever seen the movie How to Make an American Quilt. The women are together and they're making a quilt. Women in, as this country was being built, got together to sew. It was their time. It was their time to come together. It was their time to do things. It was their time to strategize, to problem solve, to whatever. And that's what we do. I chose to do it alone. And so it takes a lot longer. When you find the people, share with your friends, share with the people that are interested in busting through some comfort zones, not always copacetic with the way things are. And you move past freezing, you move past fighting, and you move past fleeing into solution doing. And doing with a net, without a net, it doesn't matter. But doing, it's that moving. I used to give a speech that involved this little pedometer that I had, and I showed people that if you walked forwards, it recorded the steps. If you walked backwards, it recorded the steps. If you walked in circles, it recorded the steps. If you crawled, it recorded the steps. If you jumped up and down, it recorded the steps. The only time it didn't record the steps is when you didn't move.
I like that. I'm going to steal that and use that.
Feel free. Feel free. You know what? It's not about every single day going out there and crushing it. And it is about every single day going out there and crushing it. And it's also about, you know what? I'm just going to take some time for myself. And maybe I'm going to eat something that's not on my diet. Or maybe I'm going to do something that isn't enlightening. Like if you watch the Democratic debate, or if you heard this, that apparently President Clinton, when his daughter was ill, they binge-watched the Police Academy movies. So this is, the leader of the free world. I think he was probably the governor of Arkansas at the time, though, that you can do that. That it's not always out there about being the best, being the first, being a badass, it's also about taking time for yourself. So sometimes, in my case, I really like to have a cookie. And it's those times that you spend with your children. And it's the time that you spend watching the sunset. And it's the time that you spend binge watching Police Academy or whatever your secret little thing is, whatever it is. I like to watch comedies of all kinds of sorts. You know what? I have binge watched Frasier. I can't tell you how many times because it just makes me laugh. At first I thought they were egoic, and really what it is they're just always making fun of themselves, appreciating who they are and laughing. That's what it is. And laughter, sometimes you just got to have a cookie, whatever your cookie is.
Coaching can be so powerful. I've been seeing a business coach for about 2.5 years, and what it's really done for me is helped me push past my fear. And the other thing is it's really let me be easy on myself. I'm always so hard on myself. I get down on myself about not doing more, not taking action where I should. And I think that's what you're speaking to. Sometimes you just want a cookie. Sometimes I just want to relax. And I found it very hard to do that in the past without beating myself about it. But now I'm able to actually take time and appreciate life and appreciate the success I have. Whereas before, I couldn't do that before. I was always thinking about what's next and how do I get there the fastest way possible, and being hard on myself for not doing more. So that's been very powerful for me in coaching, having someone, a third party to bounce things off of, a sort of a sounding board to really know that I'm headed down the right path and to keep me going in the right direction.
And it's someone who only has your best interests in mind. Because I'd like to just ask you a quick question and just think about this for just a second. That taking time for your family, for your kids, which I know are so important to you. I know that's a big thing for you. Aren't you still crushing it on the business side, especially since you're doing other things?
I am. And when it happened, it's when I pushed through the fear and stopped being worried about things. I stopped being worried about the money and stopped being worried about the success and really just started living my life. That's when things sort of started coming to me, and I wasn't having to work so hard at everything. It all started turning around when I just sort of let go of the fear and did exactly what you said. I took the leap.
Another cool thing to science the heck out of this for a second here is that all that business stuff, all of that, moving my business forward, problem, how do I do this, how do I do that, how do we fix this, how do we affect that, the left brain is running rampant at that point, trying. And you've got this whole other hemisphere of the brain that's just, going, whatever, not being utilized. And so when you stopped and you took time out to go for a walk or maybe have an ice cream cone with your kid or watch a TV show or go for a bike ride with your family or go dancing with your wife or look at the stars or whatever it is, the right hemisphere all of a sudden is doing all of these things. Have you ever heard that a lot of people have their aha moments in the shower? Something that they've been working on, thinking on, all of a sudden when they're in the shower, the answer appears. It's the right brain because both sides of the brain are engaged. So if one side of the brain is running rampant, you need the other side to bring it together so the fear doesn't bust loose and out of control. And so I actually have another technique that I walk people through that I have a video on that shows clients how to connect left and right brain instantly, because it instantly takes you out of crisis mode, instantly takes you out of fear mode. In my corporate job, people used to come up and say to me, gee, Lisa, it must be really nice to be able to go for a walk every day, but I have so much work to do. I don't know how you manage to find the time for it all the time. Kind of like saying one hand and giving that backhanded compliment, saying something nice in the front and stabbing the knife in the back. And let me tell you something, that 20-minute walk every day where I powered through, a problem, I was pounding it on the sidewalk, pushing it on the sidewalk when I was out there walking, I came back and all of those people were still in the exact same place that they had been when I left. Not necessarily working their problems, stewing over it or talking at the water cooler or something like that. And there's no judgment there. But when I came back from that 20-minute walk, lots of times the solution presented itself. And so you need that break, that the body needs that break with the fear and everything else that we do. And it sounds like your coach is very wise, looking at both sides of things, because we live a full rounded life. It's not just, remember, as I said in the beginning, in my corporate job, all these people had great paycheck. They had great responsibilities. They had a great job. We had a title, everything. Many of us had the house, the dog, the car that went with it, and these people were not happy. Many clients that I have had, they've been very blessed with the gifts that their parents wanted them to have. And the job title, my own grandfather was an amazing man, and he was a farmer for most of his life until he had a life-changing injury that no longer allowed him to do that. And he wanted to be a teacher. He wanted to be a teacher, but his father wanted him to be a farmer. And so he wanted to please his father, and he became a farmer. And then there's all these kids in world today that have all these expectations set about by their parents. I went to school in high school with a guy who was the first in class because his dad wanted him to be. His dad was very hard on him and his brother. And you know what he does for a living now? His dad wanted him to be an engineer of sorts. He wanted him to basically develop the next best cure for something. So not just an engineer, perhaps a researcher, something. He wanted to do that. And do you know what my friend does now? He's a jazz pianist, and he's very successful doing what he loves. And so whose life is it anyway? Because we have lots of friends with well-meaning advice to tell us what we should be doing. Sometimes we're in a marriage that might not be safe for us, or it might not be happy. Whose life is it anyway is that at some point all of us need to take a long, hard look and decide whether you're 20, 50, 80, 100. You've all heard stories. We've all heard stories of people going to college in their 60s, 70s, and 80s to get that college degree that they never had. And whose life is it anyway? It's really what for you, because any crazy thing, any profound thing that you list down, I've seen it happen. It's also the person who has a factory job that, it's not such a bad job. It's a pretty good job. And they come home and they have a garden, or they have friends, or they have children that they play with. Is that we don't all have to find the cure for cancer. It's appreciating the life that we have and the life that we are living, no matter where we are, and always reaching for the next thing that we want to have in our life. I've seen it happen in the clients that I've worked with, in the speakers that I have listened to. Whose life is it? And step up, pick up the reins when you're ready and say, it's my life. And maybe I don't have a clue on what to do next, but I trust. I expect. I'm feeling my feelings. I expect something different. I'm learning to appreciate myself. I'm releasing and leaping. And even if you have to do that 1,000 times, you get up 1,001 times.
I think if anyone's able to get through their fear, they can achieve great things. For people that want to reach out to you and maybe talk with you about coaching or some of your programs and advice, how would they be able to reach you?
They can email me. They can send an email to Lisa at lisagrunden.com, and that's Lisa, L-I-S-A, Grunden, Grunden.com. My phone number is out there. Give me a call. Let's talk. I'd be honored to have a chat with you. So that's Lisa at lisagrunden.com.
Thanks so much for being on the show, Lisa. What a great interview. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to meet with us and tell us all about what you do and how you were able to push past fear and have an amazing life.
Thanks, Ken. I really appreciate you inviting me. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.